Well, welcome everyone. This is Chris Frangiosa from ASA. I want to thank you for joining us today. This webinar is hosted by the American Sport Fishing Association, a trade organization that's based around recreational fishing. At ASA, we provide advocacy, tools, and connections our members need to grow and thrive. This webinar will focus on merchandising, how to make immediate change in your business. So I'd like to introduce Brian Hawkins. Brian is the president of Fixture Lab, a retail design and fixture company that helps independent retailers compete and win through strategic merchandising and purposeful store design. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll be answering them at the end of the webinar. Also, a recording of this webinar will be available on the ASA website afterwards. Brian, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Should we just dig straight in?
Let's dig in.
I love it. Okay, I've got a thing to share on the screen here. Okay, can you see that, Chris?
We're good to go.
All right, awesome. So thank you for coming to this. It's my honor to be here. I'm super excited about digging into this for the first time with the organization. So I hope that this goes great. It's going to be quick. It's going to be fun. And I want to start off with a couple disclaimers. Disclaimer number one, for the sake of today's conversation, I'm going to polarize the information and I'm going to make things sound like they're really right or really wrong in terms of merchandising, but we all know that that's not really the case. There's no good store, there's no bad store. It's just there's different ways to do things. And for every rule that I give you as a merchandiser, there's someone out there that's violating that rule and being tremendously successful. So just remember that. Today's topics are deep, like the topic of merchandising and how to get the most of your out of your sales is a deep topic. So we can't possibly cover everything today. This is going to be a very quick dive into things that I feel like are important because just about every store in America could use to do these things a little bit better. And one last disclaimer, if you see your store in here, you're welcome because I had to go to the internet to grab some pictures of stores, and if you see your store in here, you're welcome. And or I'm really sorry because I don't know. I might be using your store as an example of how to improve on something, and well, we'll see. Okay, so who's this for? This might be for you. We might be talking about your store if you carry 10 brands in the store and you have almost exactly 10 different types of fixtures in your store. Sound familiar? We might be talking about your store if the lighting in your store was almost all there when you leased the space. Or we might be talking about your store if when you scan the store with your eyes from the front door, you can really only see about 25% of the store. Or we might be talking about your store if a premier product in your store is displayed in a place and a manner that makes it feel like it had to go there versus you wanting it to be there. We might be talking about your store. If you were a shopper under 5 feet 5 inches, there would be some products in the store that you could never access without help or a long stick. This might be about your store. If there's an 85% chance that while a customer is walking or shopping your store, they'll actually be forced to brush up against another customer. And lastly, this might be about your store if you create a place where experts feel at home and beginners feel like they might be interrupting something. Or it might be about your store if there are at least a couple spots in the store where the product is piled on the floor because nobody can figure out how to display it. So I'm going to start with the really big picture. This is kind of exciting to connect the big picture of merchandising to the smallest little things about how to use hooks and stuff. So let's define merchandising. And I've put this magical effect on there because merchandising is kind of magical. It's the strategic presentation of product so people get it, connect with it, and can't help but buy it. And there's some magic to that. It's not just putting stuff on the wall however you can, of course. The great news is you don't have to look like this guy. You don't have to act like this guy to make great merchandising happen. It's really straightforward, and we're going to dig into the best stuff today. This is one of my favorite metaphors. I've used this for years when it comes to store design and merchandising, and we're looking at a glass of wine, right? And then we look at this, and we're looking at a solo cup, and it's the same wine inside this and inside this. So you know where I'm going with this, right? The wine is exactly the same between those two, but there's actual research. Studies prove that the wine that is in this glass tastes better than the wine in this cup, even though it's this exact same stuff. So if we regard the wine as the product inside the store, then the glass is the vessel, just like your store is the vessel, or the merchandising is your vessel that's going to make it look good or bad. And it's actually going to change the value of what you're showing. So throughout, you're going to see the little icons there of the solo cup or the wine glass to talk about whether that is detracting or helping your sales. So if we had a slat wall situation like what we see in this picture here with poor lighting, there's big holes in it, packages are crooked, organization is messy, that's not helping you. But if you took the exact same products and organized them, lit them better, and basically just straightened everything out, then that is helping the process. And not to beat a dead horse here, but the one on the right increases sales, the one on the left decreases sales. So we've all been in all kinds of fishing, outdoor related stores. So the pictures here look very familiar. Um, we all know we all know this type of store. And believe me, I don't want to miss the point. I know that the products that we're looking at, like in this picture, this is a great example. These products are hard to display because there's so many of them inside a store. And you've got things like rods that are nearly invisible until you have thousands of them, and then they have some sort of presence in the store. So I know that this stuff is tough, but we can do some things that we're going to cover inside this presentation to help the situation out. So we're very familiar with these. I'll land on this one and just say these things about that kind of a situation that we're very familiar with. We all grew up around stores like this. Um, the employees probably grew up in a store like this. The employees probably grew up product centric versus customer centric, meaning that they were enthusiasts. They loved fishing. They loved outdoors. They loved something like that. They were super geeked out about that kind of stuff. And then along the way, they became a place where customers come to get that same kind of stuff. On some level, this type of store that we're looking at intuitively says to you as a shopper that this shop owner knows 5,000 times more about fishing than he does about making a store pretty. And there's some comfort and authenticity in that. It's just who he is, and that's authentic. Um, in the This is big picture. In the post-World War industrial explosion, what that did was it really gave retailers the ability to jam-pack stores with way too much product. And to some degree, the old stack it high and let it fly approach of retail actually worked for a long time. And it still does, honestly. But things are changing. Somewhere along the line, the store became numb. The people in the store became numb to or lost the ability to see things in a fresh way with new customers' eyes. We know that situation too. You walk into the same place every day, and of course you get numb to what's going on there because it's just the same place. But we got to look at it with customers' eyes. This kind of store that we're looking at is a way of merchandising. It's not wrong, but in today's market, we can do better to increase our sales it's just not, the existing model that we are looking at just isn't going to work as hard to sell the product as newer ways to look at things. So in the past, if we look at then and now, then the quantity signals authority, and now curation signals authority. We see all kinds of curation everywhere around you these days. Then we carry it. Now we know what matters. It's a more informed type of a situation. Then built for insiders. Now built to welcome newcomers. Then was we're dealing with a time-rich customer. Now we're dealing with a time-starved customer. Then employees were empowered to inform. And nowadays, customers expect to inform themselves. I mean, how many times has someone walked into a store, your store, with more information on a product than you even have because they've been looking at this online for 6 months? Then large selection was exciting, and now large selection is pretty much expected. I mean, if you want large selection, we've got the internet, and you pretty much have unlimited choices there. Then you were inventory focused, and now it's customer benefit focused. Then the louder the better. Now the clearer the better. So what's changed that makes these things happen? And the easiest three things here are cognitive overload. Like we all get so many inputs every day, advertising through phones, work, life, notifications, just everything is constantly in your brain. So walking into a cluttered, disorganized store equals more decisions, more effort, which isn't going to be as good. So we have decision fatigue. You're left thinking, which one do I need? Do I really need this? What's the difference between these things? So too many choices, especially in a physical environment, equals some amount of paralysis. And the Amazon effect, what I mean by that is when you shop an Amazon or any website that's well done, you can filter things, you look at reviews, you look at bestseller tags, you have clear comparisons between things. So you have all kinds of tools to very quickly whittle down the enormous selection so that you can pick the right thing. And that's what people are wired for these days. And a lot of stores don't do a good job of catering to that. So this is, store 1.0 out there, and that is not helping us out. But if we take the same products, and I know these aren't exactly the same products, but they're pretty close. If we take the same products, merchandise them better, tell better stories visually with them, it can help a lot. Like this is a much more shoppable environment than this one. Another example, what we have here is apparel being shown on bad hangers in front of white slat wall, in front of pegboard that's also white with bad lighting, blah, blah, blah. But if you took that same stuff and put it in a store, merchandised it like this with some communication around it, breaking it into great little stories, doing a great job of mixing up the merchandising, this will pull a lot more business than this. All right, next up, same kind of a situation, kind of. This is some rather bad lighting, blank slat wall, lots of spaces. The product looks really picked over. That same amount of product put into a smaller space, merchandised much better with some props that tell the story, that pulls a lot more. And this is going to sell a heck of a lot more, even though it's a smaller space than this, which everybody's starved for space in retail stores. So the smaller, more powerful the merchandising, the better, right? All right, so now we're going to dig into details. We've looked at the big picture of merchandising, and now I'm going to dig into the small things about merchandising. And it's tough to figure out what order to put these things in, but let's talk about organizing products first. One big concept that I know you're familiar with, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded about, is color blocking. I don't know if you call it color blocking or just matching things, but what we mean there is instead of mixing everything, like imagine this scene with everything mixed up so that all the colors are, in every stack of every clothing and every hanger has a different colored something on there. It would look like chaos. But when we organize it by color, it looks like this, and this becomes a much more shoppable environment. This is an example of a shoppable environment using color blocking in the fly fishing industry. And in this case, we used the little colored tags on top of the little compartments that hold the flies. Um, those different colors signify different price ranges. And at the same time, they organized the store like this. I mean, it's very visually pleasing. And if you're looking for a certain price point, easy to find. And if you want to go back to the same bin later, you have color reference here, which is really great too. Um, Chris is familiar with this store. I pulled this one, and really what I'm looking at in this picture is what's in the background, not so much the foreground. And it's a little bit out of focus, but you still get the point. Like there's color blocking going on in this store on that wall. Sure, the products themselves are broken into categories which make sense, so they're going to kind of look the same. But also within that, you can tell that the color blocking has been done so that like these items right down the middle there that are blue are lined up in a nice row instead of being scattered around that whole little area. So that's color blocking. Try this too. Instead of when you're going to merchandise a wall, like maybe the one that we're looking at here, instead of digging in and starting to throw things on hooks as you go and trying to figure out how to organize it, consider putting starting with the products that you want to put out onto a tabletop or onto the floor even and organize them, figure out what your organization is going to be like if it's all color stories or if it is by size or type or use case or whatever the things are. There's more than one way to sort all the products, and you have to think through what makes the most sense. Usually the more premier product goes more towards the top, like top shelf at the liquor store. The higher it gets, the higher the perceived price range is in general, and that's not always the case. And then I should just go back to this. And then when you've got this organized on the floor, then you could transfer that to the wall and it might go quicker for you because you're not having to move hooks around on slat wall or whatever the fixture system is. But try doing that. Try arranging things before you stick them on the wall. Next up, I recommend you think about organizing the products into easy to reach sections that are vertical that are 2 to 4 feet wide. And what I picture when I'm thinking that is imagine if you're standing right here on the right-hand side and there's another customer shopping what's on the left-hand side. Everything that you want in the category that we're talking about, and I know this is a little bit, there's kind of similar products in both here, but they're not always going to be that way in a store. So think about standing in front of that and being able to reach with your arms and reach all the product that you want to reach within that section. That's kind of your area to shop right now. And if we spread these products out over into the next section over, then there's a good chance that while someone else is standing there, you're going to have to shop that, which means you're going to have to excuse yourself and maybe reach in front of them. And that's not comfortable. We're about trying to take the roadblocks out of this situation, not add roadblocks to it. So think in vertical segments that are 2 to 4 feet wide. And this is just another example of the exact same kind of thing happening. And like I said, sometimes the products are vastly different between these sections. In these couple examples that I have here, they don't look that different. Keep the displays that you're working on full relentlessly, which is a pain in the butt, but it's very worth it. So think about what we're looking at here is a produce section of a nice grocery store. You can see everything's very full in the background, but there are these bins, these areas that are empty in the foreground. A couple things about that. One is the empty spaces here that we're looking at, they not only don't sell any product because there's nothing there, but they actually hurt the presentation for everything else. Like if you're standing next to these bins here and they're empty and there's onions right next to it that are there, you might find yourself thinking, well, did they just not get a chance to remove these onions because they already removed the other onions? Maybe they were rotting, or I don't know what the situation was, but there's that little thing that goes on inside your head. And nothing here is going to help you with your impression of the rest of the store. It either looks like you weren't paying, like the store wasn't paying attention, or it looks like things got out of control, or something. So think about, this kind of a visual when you're looking at a wall with a number of empty hooks. That's what's going on, and it's creating the same kind of an impression. Speaking of hooks, let's go into some hook basics. Okay, I'm showing 3 different packages here that all have a very key difference between them, and that is the way that they're hung. The problem with this kind of package that we see millions of in the types of stores that we're looking at is that a lot of times they hang crooked. Or the package can be compromised and it no longer hangs at all. So it gets placed on a shelf or something. So we've got some tools to help with that situation that are really, really simple. Okay, here's the 3 different types of holes in a product. In a package, there's the round one, obviously. Then there's this one, which is it's called 3 different things: the sombrero hole, or the airplane hole, or I prefer Euro hole because it sounds really cool that way. And then there's the Delta hole in the package. These two have one common characteristic that is super helpful, and the reason why they are designed that way is so that you can use something like this. If you use a loop hook, you don't always have to use that, but you have at this is one of the options, a merchandising option for you that's really simple. You can get hooks that are these loop style hooks, or sometimes they're just called Euro hooks. And those help to support the product better so that it's not as apt to tip in the situation. Here's another really, really easy thing to do, and that is to order these things. Because so many times those weak plastic packages, I mean, a customer pulls it off the hook the wrong way and it breaks the little tab up top. So if you just have these things on hand, these little extra tabs, that QR code actually should work. So if you wanted, you could order it while we're talking here. You could get completely distracted from what we're talking about and just order those things. They're super cheap, and you should basically have those in your back pocket whenever you're going out to merchandise. And then if you want to really go above and beyond, you can get punches that actually do the Euro style hole. So you could put tape across the top of a package that's been compromised or that's not hanging right. So you could put your new, you could stamp or cut your new hole in the top of that and get things going again so that you don't have to deal with the package always looking dreadful out on display. This is another really, really helpful thing and really, really cheap. You can get like thousands of these for practically nothing. It's just a little clip that goes on the standard hook. It would actually go on a loop hook too. And all it does is push the product forward on the hook so that when you have lightly merchandised hooks, like something like we see in the picture here, where there's only a couple products on that one hook, but you don't have more, so you can't fill the hook, you can pull them forward. And the better job you do with facing them or pulling them forward on the hook so that everything's consistently merchandised across the face, the better it's going to sell. If the hook is empty, then remove the hook and redistribute stuff. Because what we see here on the right is like missing a tooth. Like that's all you can see is the missing spot in the merchandising there. and it's not pretty, and you find yourself wondering what that product was because it must have been cool because it's the only thing that's sold out here. Let's talk about hangers. Don't mix hanger types. This is one of those things that people say, well, yeah, of course, we know that. But you go into the store and I guarantee the hangers are mixed because you get new different hangers from each different apparel brand, or each order that you place from anywhere comes with its own hanger. And so things get mixed up. And then customers put the wrong hangers in there because in some other part of the store, you know the problem. But if you use the same kind of hanger across all of the merchandise on that display, it just makes a gigantic difference in the perceived value of what we're talking about, which is going to help the sales of that. Cheap plastic hangers say we don't really care. Clearly, I mean, nobody in the whole world misses the point that a cheap plastic hanger is the path of least resistance. Like, no one's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so glad they put this $100 shirt on this cheap plastic thing. No, they know that you're just taking the path of least resistance. So again, upgrade the hangers and sell more clothing. This is super simple, but always face the hooks the same way across the whole store. Teach everybody every time they see a hook that's not on there the right way, because customers don't know this trick and they're not responsible for merchandising your store. So they put them on any old way. But as you go through, just straighten them out. It's like redoing a produce section. All right, I'm going to talk about lighting for a second. And I don't know. I'm guessing that you probably don't expect lighting in a merchandising conversation, but it, in a big way, impacts everything across the board that we're doing merchandising wise. So it's worth mentioning. It's like if I was going to teach you how to fly a plane, I don't know, I might start with make sure you close the windows first so the plane doesn't crash. It's like a big thing like that. When we look at images like this, a few things going on. One is there's no spotlighting going on. So the products are just kind of flat and drab looking. Who knows what the real light level in the store is like. I suspect that the real light level in the store when the camera isn't adjusting for it, it's probably low. And then there's these lights along the backside there that line the top, and those are kind of useless, maybe even hurting the whole thing because that light only shows on the very top of the top product on the wall and creates shadows for everything else. And your eyes adjust to the brightest light, which makes everything else dim. So that's what's going on lighting wise there. This is worth addressing. If you didn't change anything else about the store, changing the lighting is going to help increase the sales. This is a nicely lit slat wall section. And here's a couple tells, like look at your store and think about these things. Can you, when you look at your product on the wall, can you see shadows with a crisp edge? That's a tell because if you can't see shadows with a crisp edge, then you're not using the right light to make that product punchy. What you want to do is you want to create contrast between it's usually in our industry, the products can be beautiful. You know, the colors are awesome and they're going to jump off the wall if you light them well. So make sure you can see shadows. Use spotlights on things. The other thing that the shadow tells you is that there's a difference between the ambient light in the store and the spotlight in the store. That's what the difference is the shadow essentially. So if you don't have shadows, then all the light's too flat and it's not going to sell as well. Okay, here's another example of lighting. On the left, we have another flat light kind of situation. They've even made it worse here by putting spotlights in your face as you're shopping. I don't know what they're lighting over here on the left-hand side, but that's a bad lighting scenario. And on the right-hand side is a well-lit store. No lights in your face. The products are being spotlit. See the nice crisp shadows? See the lack of shadows over here? And look how much different the same colors of products look with good lighting. Uh, I mean, where to start on this one, but the store looks completely dark. There's way too many products. The aisles are too small. You're going to have to bump into people to shop that. That's just kind of a nightmare. Um, could this store be helped by lighting? Absolutely. Would it fix all the problems? Absolutely not. All right, let's talk about telling a story with your merchandising. Think about, again, not new to you, but I'm reminding you because maybe there's something that you want to do in the front of the store or in another part of the store right now. Group products from a single experience together. It's really just that simple. So think about, we're going to show a paddleboard. Okay, I'm going to think about the moment that I'm on the paddleboard. What am I wearing? What would be fun to have on the paddleboard? What am I going to do right after I get off the paddleboard? And what do I wish I had on the paddleboard? That's the moment in time that you're sticking all of this merchandise there for. You are now a fly angler and you're going to go, you're going to go out in a river in some waders. So what am I going to wear? What hat am I going to wear? What am I going to wear on my face, on my arms? What packs do I need? What am I going to do immediately afterwards? That kind of stuff. Practice knolling. That term, knolling, is a real term, and may not be familiar to you, but what we're looking at here is a great example of knolling. It is exploding a moment in time and showing all of the products and all of the things that are emotionally connecting with that moment in time onto a wall or onto a display. And if you go to like REI does this a lot, like you'll start to recognize this kind of thing happening. And it's a great way to tell a story about what's going on. Like, and it doesn't even have to be product that you're going to sell. Like, if this were a product in an outdoor store, they probably don't carry guitars. But the guitar helps to inform the emotion of what's going on there. And the more emotionally connecting we make this, the better the merchandising, the better the sales. Use graphics and imagery to immerse the customer in the moment. This is a great example from a North Face store where, as you're walking up the stairs to the second level, you're climbing stairs next to people climbing Everest. That kind of thing. We're not tricking anybody. You're not actually climbing Everest, but what you're doing is you're helping people to think about getting out there, being outside, fishing, doing great things. Get again that emotional connection to what they want to do. Another great detail in merchandising is the signage involved. Signs can help you define your brand. Your store definitely has competition. If it's not the internet, then it has other retail competition in town. And it may not even be people that carry the exact same stuff, but somehow or another, there is another store, another retail environment in some way that's fighting for your customers' time and using the right kind of signs that create a personality and tell the customers what you're all about can really help in defining your brand and creating the relationship that you'd like to have so that they just want to come back to your store more often. Signs can take the guesswork out of shopping. And remember, this is what we're all about. We're not looking for chaos, we're looking for clarity. So, as boring as category signs in your store can be, they're really useful. Like these are category signs that we built for a fly shop that are actually backlit. They're really fun. Um, this kind of thing is super helpful. Telling people where the restrooms are so they don't have to ask someone, that's nice. When you walk in the front door, if you're scanning that space and you can see through it nicely and you can see where the waiters are and that's what you're interested in, remember that the products overlap each other as you're walking in the front door. Everything overlaps everything. So it's hard to see, even though the waiters are painfully clear, it's hard to see a lot of times things like waiters. So having a sign above the waiters that calls them out is really helpful, helps to demystify that store and lets people start spending money rather than wandering around wondering. Signs can help the customer feel smarter. And I don't mean like lots smarter. I mean just a little bit smarter. Like This example that I have here from Yeti is a great example of just giving the customer a little bit of information that they don't have to ask someone about, or it helps them to ask a better question. So this kind of a thing is super valuable. We want to inform, we want to help people, we want to curate things for people, and we want to demystify things. On the same note, well done signs can help the customer ask better questions. We have all been in environments where you're not sure what you're looking at. Um, in the case that we're looking at here, we designed the fixture system that we're looking at there so that there's always this sign on the left-hand side that can be used to help tell the customer what they're looking at, which helps them ask a better question. Instead of saying to the person in the store, "Oh man, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you help me out?" Now they can ask a more informed question about the specific patterns that they're looking at, which empowers the customer and helps them engage in the process. That's magic. This story doesn't work hard enough to differentiate your store. It is a story. Putting fish on the wall is awesome because it literally is telling a story. It's a fish story. And, this thing was one that I caught in XYZ or something. That's a great story, but it doesn't differentiate your store because nearly every fishing store has fish on the wall somewhere. So don't count on this as the only story that's in your store. Let's look at Slatwall now. And these are pro tips. These are the next level tips for using Slatwall because it is a very popular solution inside stores. Beware that Slatwall encourages inefficient merchandising. The example that I'm showing here is just plain messy. Even if you take the messy factor out of it, the fact that everything's kind of spread out is what I'm talking about. Slat wall because it creates this like open slate, this like huge span of just you can stick stuff anywhere. It encourages people who aren't paying attention to spread things out, put big gaps between things, and it becomes very inefficient. I talk to stores all the time that are like, well, we want to add a new display for XYZ, but we don't have any room. And then you look at their merchandising and it looks, maybe not messy like this, but it looks kind of like this where there's holes in it. And you're like, oh my gosh, if you just made your merchandising more efficient in all the other areas, it would free up everything that you need to be able to do the premier display that you want to do in the other part of the store. Avoid using the same old drab colors that we've seen a million times in terrible stores of slat wall. Like these just don't do you any favors. Um, because you've seen them in so many bad stores and they're not interesting. Fact is, there's tons and tons of really great slat wall these days that can look like bricks or reclaimed wood or license plates or stone or whatever or metal. All kinds of great slat wall that can uh, pull the story of your store through more. And don't use slat wall like you buy it, like 4x8 sheets. Don't just start screwing those to the walls just like that, and don't cover an entire wall from head to toe, because that just indicates to the person shopping that you took the path of least resistance, and that very subtle way says you don't care enough to do something special. So do something special, like break the slat wall into very shoppable sections. This is slat wall, but it's been divided by these little dividers with lights inside there, so it dresses it up. So this is slat wall really working hard and really pulling the the wine glass style of merchandising through for us. And this becomes much more shoppable. Notice how, remember I talked about the vertical categories? Everything that's like this bottle is in this vertical segment there. And across the wall, it's just like that. This just makes some good intuitive sense to a shopper. This helps them to shop faster and it glorifies the product and makes it look more awesome. If you take those dividers out and then just spread stuff out, this is what you see too often. Like, this is not an exaggeration. Like, you see things spread out across Slatwall all the time. And this is way harder to shop because there's no organization to it. Last thing about Slatwall is I always recommend using the inserts that you've seen. They come in different plastic colors like black and white and other colors. But there's also aluminum ones and there's painted ones and all that. All of them, any insert that you get for your slat wall is going to help increase the strength of the slot because there's nothing worse than seeing a spot that's busted out on the slat wall because someone tried to hang something too heavy or someone tripped and hit a hook and it busted out. So those increase the strength and they just dress up the slots, which is primo. Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't, in a merchandising presentation, mention cleaning. It only takes one hair to ruin a great meal, and cleaning supplies should be just so handy for everyone who's out merchandising that it's hard not to tidy up frequently, to dust something, to wipe something off that's got a little bit of stuff on it. Wipe off the keyboards that you're using. The cleaner the store, the more it's clear that you're paying attention to everything in the store. And I'm starting to get close to the end with my slides here, so we can go to questions if there are any. But I wanted to land on an important thing here that we can learn from grocery stores. There's a lot of science inside of a grocery store about how to place products and how to keep people buying as much as they can. And the lessons that we can learn are right here. Like, number one is have reset cycles. In a grocery store, major resets one or two times a year. Major reset is changing big things in the store. Minor tweaks would be quarterly or seasonal, and that just means moving some stuff around. And then this next thing I really love, high frequency micro disruption to interrupt autopilot shopping. I love micro disruption because it doesn't have to be a big, huge move. It just means moving something for the sake of moving something, just so that people can't autopilot shop your store. So constantly move stuff around, even if it's just something that's on the countertop, move it from one counter to another counter just to keep things fresh, which is the treasure hunt principle. If your customers know exactly where everything is all the time, like down to the exact product, then they're apt to stop discovering new things because they don't have to look around. They're going to come in at the front door with their blinders on and just head straight to whatever that thing was that they always get. And you don't want to stop them by frustrating them with rearranging the store completely. But if you just adjust things, they're going to stumble across things that they didn't know they needed, that they didn't know they wanted, and it's going to help sales. So shift categories, relocate secondary items, change pathways in a subtle way. Um, those are all really, really good tips. Um, Grocery stores move things around strategically based on sales velocity, margin, and vendor deals. So think about the stuff that in different seasons, that's an easy one. The different seasons of that you serve at your store. Seasonally, there are different products that are the hot sellers. So move those around, feature them more, push the hot selling stuff into the customer's face when they walk in the store and just make a change. And I wanted to say that you should think about the last time that you found a produce person, back to this grocery store thing, creating a fresh new display of apples, right? We've all been there. You walk into the store and there's someone working on the new apple display, literally the apples, um, in the grocery store. Intuitively, what that means, because you see the person doing it, is, oh, that's the freshest stuff. He is pulling that out right now. So those are probably the best apples in the whole place, which is great. that says something nice, but the attention to the display being given also improves your opinion of the whole store ever so slightly because you can see that that person's addressing what's going on inside the store and making decisions to help their customers out and making things look beautiful. So that improves your opinion of the brand and of the store in just the smallest little way, but that's a great thing. And it also creates a great opportunity for your employee, if say your employee is the one making the new Apple display, um, or putting the new apples out, it creates a great opportunity for them to be talking with the customer. No longer does that employee have to stand behind a counter scrolling things on their phone waiting for a customer to come in. They could be out actively revising something in the store, and that puts them in the perfect spot for a customer to say, "Oh, hey, I've got a question about XYZ." That's perfect stuff. I mean, there's no losing in this scenario by re-merchandising that little area of the store. All right. So that is the whirlwind version of what I have today. And I wanted to encourage you to get out there and create more of the wine glass version of your store than the solo cup version of your store. And before I turn this off, I have one thing I want to share with you, and that is this. I've been looking at the stores and I got to thinking that the merchandising would make a great shirt, actually. And so I figured out that if you actually put that shirt on and go through the store, you'd be perfectly camouflaged. And if you ever want to scare the crap out of your customers, just pop out of nowhere by being completely camouflaged by your store in your fishing camo.
So funny. Brian, thank you so much. We do have a few questions from the chat.
Yay!
Um, that was great. I learned a lot from that. That was fantastic, Brian. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you,
question.
Chris. I learned everything that was in here from you.
Oh,
So
good. Okay. All right. So first question from the chat. If the slat wall hook is empty of product and I don't remove it, is it a red solo cup to add a sorry, we're out of this, but it's on order tag as a filler to show we carry the product, but it's not in at the moment?
Chris, you could weigh in on that. I guess it depends on how much that's going to happen, for one. If it is a key product and you'd like them to ask you about getting on the list so that when it comes in, we can call you and you can come back and get it, that could be valuable. I don't think it would be, it's, it's, it's way better than leaving the empty hook. Let's put it that way. It's not as good as filling it with something else, but I completely understand. And sometimes people have cards that they put on the hooks that indicate what the product is that should go on that hook so that they can see and the customer can see what's missing off of that hook. And it's okay, but it's not the perfect scenario.
I would agree. It's definitely better. In a lot of cases, it's all about a restock scenario for the staff. So I think there's a lot of value to that as well. So I think the answer is if you're going to leave an empty peg, have it be there for a reason,
Yep.
whether it be restocking or just showing customers what's coming. Uh, the next question from Jenny, I'm going to ask you to elaborate on this, but the question is advice on hanging product vertically versus horizontally. I'm assuming that you mean if they're the same product, should they go from left to right or should they go from top to bottom? Um, so that would be the question, especially with lures and hooks and things that have sizes. How would you suggest doing that?
Oh man, the example that you're talking about, it is tough because you're left trying to decide between, well, like some of these colorways fit together for the different products, but they might be different sizes or they might be a different use case or something like that. And that would actually disorganize it to organize it by color. I always think vertically, but not one small package over another. Think of that 2 foot wide section that's very shoppable. So within that 2 foot to 4 foot wide shoppable area, then I would start with, it's tough to say without a specific example, but it might start with one size and go down to a different size, and it might start in one price and go to a different price. But I would always start thinking vertically rather than horizontally.
Thanks, Brian. And then one more. What type of product is most affected by merchandising? Clothing, rods, reels, etc. So
Oh
I think
man.
that the question is, what if I can't do every department, what departments are most affected by merchandising? And I think it's apparel, but that's just me. So
Um, shoot, it's tough though. I mean, apparel is a poorly done apparel area is going to really hurt you because it can just look dreadful if sometimes things are in piles on shelves instead of being folded or instead of being on hangers, and that can just look terrible and really, really hurt you. Um, but you can make very similar mistakes in everything else that we're doing. I would say rather than picking one that you have to do and not thinking about the others, maybe think about what small things you can do to all the categories. Maybe divide your time up that way so that you're addressing more of the concerns across the whole spectrum of what you're merchandising versus a beautiful apparel section and a really terrible looking rod section.
yeah, the reason I thought apparel was I feel like the more a product is a want more than a need, people are less apt to look for it. So it's
That's
kind
a
of like a
really
spur of the moment pickup thing. So
that's a really great point. If they're coming in looking for a specific lure, whether that, is straight on the hook, it may not make much difference in that case, but they're more likely to come in and be impacted by a beautiful display of apparel and change their mind and throw that into their bag as well.
wonderful. All right, that closes that up, Brian. Thanks again. Alan, you have a few words to say, and then we're out of here.
I just want to take the time. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to Brian for all of his insights on merchandising. I definitely learned a lot. Um, for all of our webinars, they're all recorded. To review our previous webinars and to register for upcoming ones, you're going to want to go to asafishing.org. And at the top, you'll see the header that's education. And then you'll see a toolkit section, which is our customer engagement tackle box, where you can get all the information. There you'll find tools uh, that'll help create lifelong anglers, including our weekly fishing report templates, to really keep your anglers engaged. And we'll be adding more resources throughout the webinar series. For any further questions, feel free to reach out to the ASA team by visiting the header About Us and click on our team where you can see all of our staff and reach out to us. We'll be happy to teach you and give you any instruction and as well as share other resources to help your business thrive. Thanks again and tight lines.